Next is Panellist. Who go first? Okay, so Kambale from Ghana and Congo.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, wow. Good morning, everyone. All right, so we'll go ahead and try to discuss something that's very dear to me. For some of you who know me, I'm passionate about tech, but I'm also passionate about the Congo. But there is something happening in the globe where, when we're talking about mineral resources and digital space, we miss the understanding of what we say when we're talking about in the digital space. And it's becoming much more clear to me as I'm talking to people who may not be interested in the tech space. How do I explain why this is important? So you are in a digital space, right? It's a territory. Around the 50s, people met and say, particularly in Bandung, they say that we need to exert sovereignty. The reason why they did so is because they felt that the countries, right, the land and the governance of the country, they did not control. And because they did not control that, they needed to find a way to come together to gain independence, to gain sovereignty. Right? There's something is happening in the digital space. The digital space being a territory. Who owns that space, right? You say it's a free space. Well, some people have territory somewhere. And as they start grappling, right, that they are holding some space, you in the digital space, what do you control? And if you do not control anything, that will determine the affairs of your digital space. Just as in an independent country, we say we want to control our affairs. So if we understand it from the concept, that helps us a bit in understanding why the digital sovereignty matter. It defines everything that we do, from healthcare decisions to even security of a country, right? Even how you govern. The second one, as I mentioned in the space, is that there are a few people, corporations, and specific countries, they control the digital space, right? There is concentrated power mostly by big techs, mostly from Silicon Valley. But now, from us on the African continent, we want to lift up Kwame Nkrumah. So in that space, as we're looking at who controls what do we have to do, right? Do we need to follow a certain path? So we're saying we need to looking east, not west, we're looking forward. The reason why we have to look forward is because we have to leapfrog into this space, learning from the best practices that is existent so that we can have a solution that is better for our people on the continent. And I kind of spoke about the meeting in 1955. Countries decided to show up in Bandung, Zhou Enlai, Nasser, Nkrumah, and others, as they were thinking about political independence 70 years ago. We happened to be in Beijing 7 years later. So why are we here in Beijing discussing Bandung in the context of digital sovereignty? Just as they grapple with the question of political independence, today, one of the most pressing questions is who owns our data and for whose benefit? So it is even much more urgent now for communities as we are thinking about control of our data, which is our wealth, that we regain control over that data. But data is still abstract. But what makes it actually work, right? It's the mineral foundation, the minerals from the African continent mostly. No, the African continent has most of the critical minerals. The DRC, where I am from, holds about 70% of the world's cobalt, an essential mineral needed for electric vehicles, for data centers. Even the AI race, you will need cobalt in it. But in the extraction of minerals, there is no benefit from the for the Congolese people, that as we think about building this just world and even thinking about digital sovereignty, I argue that with digital sovereignty, we also have to think about resource sovereignty, right? Even as we start thinking about the world competition on who is going to be advanced in the AI race, you will notice the US engagement has been to secure access to critical resources, right? When you think about what's happening in Venezuela in terms of the U.S. needing to control the oil, you think about the DRC, where the DRC has signed an agreement with the United States of $3 trillion. Let me repeat it. Not 1 billion, 2 billion, not 10 billion, but $3 trillion worth for our resources in exchange for peace with the United States. So they are securing the resources. So we have to make sure, as we are even mobilizing a long digital sovereignty, we are supporting those who are fighting to make sure that the flow of resources benefit the people first, as Lumumba fought for before he was assassinated. Now, there is a data flow. Just as with the colonial era of exploitation, data flows the same way. Right? Human beings create data. As that data is generated, it is extracted, right? And the extraction means what? Your data is ending up into a server somewhere. So that's how you need to understand data extraction. So you create the data and it ends up in a data center somewhere. When it's in the data center, what happens? Value is created. That data is used to train AI models, right? The AI models become smarter and smarter, and products are created from that. When the final product is created, those who actually created the data don't have any benefit from that. And it's one of the smartest thefts of the 21st century today. Because even all of us, right, we produce that data freely, but we don't know that it has value. And we've been able to be convinced that data has no value when it actually has value. So when ordinary people realize that, wait a minute, we are back in 1885 as they carved up the African continent and take these resources, right? We start demanding that we must control how our data is extracted, where it is located, and who is going to benefit from it. I'll skip a few slides as time is getting to a close, but I strongly believe that in the stage of AI, Africa has a unique opportunity to engage with the Global South in a particular framework. And that particular framework, my hope, will be to encourage African governments and countries in the Global South to operate under the BRICS framework. There is a BRICS AI Center here in Shanghai that brings together scholars, academics, institutions, discussing way forward in the digital space. Africa has the resources. Africa, it has a young population that's generating data. It's culturally diverse, right? And there can be easy growth in terms of advance in AI. If we are operating under the framework of BRICS, we'll be able to learn from one another. And I'll use an example of what we are doing in Ghana. You know, there are a few developers in Ghana. They are working in the Ghana Natural Language Process Group. They have built a translator that is much more powerful than Google Translate. You probably missed that. Young developers in Ghana have a better language translator than Google Translate, right? And they are undermining them by Google in Accra, right? And everywhere I go, I keep lifting up the name, that you can actually test it. The tree, the guy, and what they are actually doing actually has an impact, but no one knows about them. Working with those on the ground who are building local solutions in AI is critical. I think I will learn to share now on the digital sovereignty one of the vulnerabilities that we have. Last year, in 2024, millions of Africans were disconnected from the internet, including in Ghana. The reason why it happened is because one of the subsea cable was cut off, right? And the subsea cable, we don't control it. And as that happened, it should have actually raised an alarm for many people in Ghana and Africa that we have no control whatsoever of our digital space. Something happened last month, right? Many developers who build applications on Amazon were affected when AWX actually went off. Some of you may not know that it have happened, but this affected a lot of developers. So we keep seeing cases and cases where we do engage in the digital space and something happened and we have no control. But how do we now make sure that this doesn't happen again? Okay, I'll go to that last slide. That's the vision that I want to present, right? The digital Bandung vision. An idea coming from Malaysia, surprisingly, right? You'll hear more about it from John. We met in August with a few intellectuals, academics, discussing what will be the way forward for the world today as we think about digital sovereignty. From the African perspective, we believe that we will have to learn from the world, but we also have to share what we have with the world. There are some technical standards in China that we're learning every time we are coming here that African country has to participate in even how we are creating our policy. We have to invest in our infrastructure, but it's not easily said, oh, let's go in and just build our infrastructure. So we have to leverage the Belt Initiative 2.0, as I say. As now China is engaging on the African continent in developing roads and infrastructure, can I have a Belt and Road Initiative 2.0 that invests in key infrastructure where Africans are benefiting from the digital space? We have to negotiate as a continent, as a bloc. What the United States is doing is going countries by countries, right? Each country with a different deal. Ghana may not be speaking with Cote d'Ivoire, but the United States is engaging with these two governments, signing the same deal that is affecting the continent. So African countries have to engage as a bloc as they negotiate with the big tech or anyone who would like to engage on the African continent. And knowledge sharing is critical. Every time I come, you've heard me already mention BRICS AI Center. Whenever I was there, I was very impressed by the advance that is taking place here in China as related to AI. And I hope that we who have come to China, we will learn from it, will build the relation, mutual respect and dignity so that we can transform our continent and have an impact in the global south. Thank you.
Thank you, Kambale.